Heroes and Legends, Generations 4, 4A. The story of 4A takes place in the middle of the Holy War, which is currently ongoing. A little backdrop to what has been happening. The Billdaron Empire, who reigns with an iron fist across the known universe, has long suppressed those ancient powers of old that could quickly rise up and cause chaos and trouble, and are capable of fighting for dominion within the universe. Akari Urkesin's rule suggested that those in the main allies had unlimited power and military, with the Billdaron and Urka forces and the Siffarisi were the supreme and on top. Thus, many powers were suppressed, prevented to have their own militaries and virtually their own independence. There was peace, yes, but many were hardened and hated the rule of the Billdaron, but were powerless to do anything about it, given that Akari herself was the most powerful person within the universe, and had other powerful generals and the leaders under her command. Still, this did not stop a few persons that did not want the rule of Billdaron to try their luck anyway. Try as they would, they would have failed. Bruno, for example, was fond of the Shura Galaxy, and he led a rebellion against the Billdaron Empire. But however, his rebellion was found out, and he would fail to destroy the iron fist of the Billdaron as they sent their sheer numbers, including the Lagoon Forces, to end them. However, Bruno, along with his friend Paulina, who also joined the rebellion with Bruno, had failed in their rebellion but managed to escape. And ever since, they were wanted fugitives within the entire universe. But ever since the Holy War began, Akari Urkesin and her main forces paid their full attention to the dimensions, as she was determined to kill Damien I and now Damien II, and the Irishans, and all those that stand to oppose them. As a result, the Billdaron forces have suffered many casualties, troop numbers, and seeing the end of the Stellar forces and Stefan, the last Madonian warrior within the Cabalon forces. With this, the Billdaron had to secretly request more troops from the universe, but they have to rely heavily on the Neo-Billdaron forces within the dimensions. Seeing this, the Billdaron forces had to put troops in place to replace the Stellar forces in our sector of space, which was a large territory. Others began to say that the Billdaron had to stretch their forces thin, and thus it was a sign that the Billdaron was struggling within the dimensions. And so, forces within the universe were secretly gathering once more to try their hand to overthrow the Billdaron Empire. And thus began the 4A story. King Horatio, who was 92, of the Jedi, enjoyed his time within his galaxy. He mourned for the loss of Stella and her forces, although they were at war in the beginning. However, she encouraged him to join the Billdaron Empire instead of being their enemy. He mourned for her, and all those that died. He also mourned the loss of at the heel, who died by the hands of Bajan. So even the Jedi had casualties. His wife, Queen Marshi, a cunning lady, was suggesting that they go out soon to the war to aid the forces and to avenge their fallen. However, King Horatio wanted the war to end, and if by chance the Billdaron Empire was to meet its end, Jedi would have to be in good terms with whoever the victor was. Viceroy Marvin, the twin brother of Queen Marshi, also agreed, because he did not want nothing to happen to the Jedi, especially to his dear friend Prince Walker, who was the son of King Horatio and Queen Marshi. As these three senior leaders and founders of the new Jedi Kingdom discussed the plans forward, Prince Walker, a man of a pure heart, and his dear cousin, the thick-boned Gator, were out training and growing stronger in the courtyard. As they began to train and enjoy themselves, Sata, the veteran knight and fighter of the Jedi with his bully weapon, suddenly appeared before them and challenged all two of them to a duel. And so the brothers in arms, the cousins, accepted his challenge. This bout ended in total victory for the veteran warrior, as Prince Walker and Gator still had a few training to do. And so the three of them began to train. While all this was happening within the Jedi Kingdom, over in the Oberon galaxies, where they were ruling clan space, Fong Oberon, the smart tactician and genius of the Oberon clan, sat on his throne, adjusted his glasses as he talked to his great apprentice, Heather, the young 24-year-old, a lady of many secrets. Fong relied on her more than he relied on his powerful younger cousin, Izani Oberon Jr. Fong had a plan, unknown to many in the universe outside of a few. Fong had secret ambitions for a much larger role for Oberon in the universe, in the Billdaron universe, I should say. For Fong, he was well aware of those within the universe that were plotting to gather forces against the Billdaron, while the majority of their empire was fighting in the dimensions. To keep pace, the Oberon too had sent their forces to the dimensions to fight. However, it was a small force. Secretly, the Oberon were gathering weapons and troops for its own military campaign. However, Fong sent Heather on an investigation to befriend these forces that fell ill and hated the Billdaron, in order to gain their trust, to figure out which direction the Oberon clan should take. However, she rendezvoused with Alfred Cyber, the head of the technical Cyber family, who was an offshoot family of Clan Space, very powerful and influential. It was said that they had recently acquired the old territory where the new Sudi temple was once built. The temple, which was destroyed by the combined forces of the then ANDROSICA Empire and the Billdaron Empire during the times of Darius LaFleur. And so Heather and Alfred had met up and began to discuss their plans. Cyber wanted to test Heather's might to see if she was truly worthy of joining their cause or just another spy. After proving her might, as Alfred's Cyber was catching his breath, they were met by Franz, a Tactoran guard dog. He was the strong man behind the new force that was secretly building within the universe. I was gathering forces to join their cause, and he noted that the Oberon and Jedi were once a part of the great Sudi force that guarded this temple, and they would be key if they joined them in overthrowing the Billdaron Empire while they were away. However, then realized that this new force was the rebirth of Sudi, but was there anyone left in the Sudi bloodline still alive? She had to inquire more about this and report back to her lord. Elsewhere, Mizani and Taruko is the loyal officer of the Oberon. Were traveling through space. They hit a distant planet to rest. And when they rested, they found Bruno and Paulina, the two most wanted fugitives in the universe. Mizani is happy to pick a fight with them. Bruno and Paulina only took a pit stop to join the rebirth Sudi forces. However, now they have to face the powerful maniac, Mizani Oberon and Taruko. Mizani and Taruko dealt a heavy blow to Bashir forces. Bruno and Paulina tried their best, but they were no match for the increasingly powerful and strong, getting much stronger, Mizani. Mizani was on the cusp of being a prime, but he still needed more, to do more to reach that goal that he had set for himself. However, within the rest stop, before Bruno and Paulina were met their end before Mizani, however, had arrived to stop Mizani and Taruko and their foolishness. She reported that Fong needed them alive and that they needed to follow them to the location. And she got in contact with the cyber forces. Mizani, knowing what Hubble was talking about, dropped his weapons. And so Bruno, Paulina, Alfred, Cyber, Franz, Mizani, Taruko, and Hebel went to the secret base where the supposedly Sudi forces were located. Elsewhere, Fong was still in the headquarters within his home galaxy, making plans, phone calls, and communications with key players within his long-sighted plan. As the group reached the secret location deep within Sudi space, they arrived to see the warrant of the Sudi. His name was Hans. Hans was very loyal to the Sudi cause. However, he was not all that bright. Hans welcomed the guests, and especially the Oberon, as their time was soon at hand. While these big bosses were meeting within the Sudi galaxy to await further plans and instructions, Prince, Walker, and Gator were training in an offshoot planet within the outer rim of the Jedi galaxy, where uninvited guests had arrived. The Donian Bashar troops suddenly attacked them, stunned that they thought there would be no more Donian forces were fighting in the universe after the death of Stefan. They did not know what was going on, and so These two powerful young men had to fight back to defend themselves. The fighting was fierce. However, it seems like the Macedonians did not want to kill them, instead to test them. As they were about to win victory, the Macedonians, as suddenly as they broke into their house, escaped, and one of them left an invitation to a location of secrecy. Meanwhile, the forces that were in the now revamped Sudi temple all welcomed the leader and the true mastermind of all of this. It was none other than Reynard Lagoon. The 35-year-old man was the last descendant of the Lagoon family of the former Lagoon universe from the Third Great War. Mizani and Heather and Taruko were stunned. They did not expect anyone from the Lagoons to exist, let alone in this major combined universe. Reynard then explained that he was trapped within the confines of ice for many years after the Third Great War. But it was during the time in which the Age of Chaos, where the ice finally broke, and he was found by Alfred Cyber and those that were sick and tired of Billdaron rule. Reynard was of the Royal Lagoon family, and he used the Sudi name as it was very popular in that universe to regain and have support from those that were willing to stand up against the Billdaron Empire, and thus the Oberon clan, the major allies of the Lagoons. In fact, Great Mazzani's grandfather was one of the most loyal officers of the Lagoon and friend of Sudi, so it only made sense for the Oberon to join them. Mazzani now knew, or at least he thought he knew, what Thong wanted Heather to do, to make contact with the true lords and masters, the Lagoon Sudi, and forsake the Billdaron and declare war and independence. And so, it was during this time that Reynard told the story, but when he first had risen up and woken up, he was found by some Billdaron androids, and he had to use his weapons two giant chakrams to beat back the androids and destroy the Billdaron forces before they get a hint of his existence. Impressed by Reynard Lagoon's valor and might, Mazzani then declared that the Oberon will join the Lagoon Sudi forces to resurrect the Lagoon Empire and bow down to the new king. Reynard was pleased. As they continued to grow and rebuild the temple, the Oberon forces, with Hans accompanying them, were on their way back to their cluster and clan space to rally up their forces and their military to overthrow the Billdaron from right underneath their noses. It was at this time that Viceroy Marvin had appeared before Prince Walker, Gator, and Sato to report the urgent news. They had received reports from a secret force that the Oberon were planning a rebellion. Gator was stunned. He didn't understand why the Oberon would be rebelling against the Billdaron when the Billdaron had so much power. Prince Walker was speechless, but Sato, however, had misgivings and mistrust within the Billdaron about the Oberon especially, although the Billdaron Empire fought to get the Jedi to join them, and the Jedi were reluctant to even join the Billdaron Empire. It would be up to the Jedi to save the Billdaron Empire from collapse and possible civil war and stop the Overthrow rebellion before it spread to the entire universe. And so the four men raced down to stop the Overthrow before it was too late. The forces of the Jedi raced to Mizani's home planet, where Mizani and his military forces were preparing to march their forces to the Urka capital planet in a surprise raid to overthrow the government. Prince Walker, with the advice of his friend Viceroy Marvin, were going to stop the Overthrow and knock them back to their senses, or knock them to the ground. It was at this time that Hans, the warrant of Sudi, made his foul debut and joined the Overthrow. As a sign of friendship, Hans demanded that the Jedi return to the Sudi, as Horatio, their king, was once a part of the same Jedi that joined the Sudi, and so he demanded their cooperation. It was then that Prince Walker then knew what this was all about. Somehow, someway, the Sudi merchants had risen up again, and thus why the Overthrow have joined them. He wondered if his father, for the sake of ending the wars of this universe, would rejoin the Sudi, as he had separated himself completely from them in order to ensure Jedi's safety. However, the war was turned sideways for the Billdaron Empire. Back into the dimensions, Prince Walker wondered what his father would do in this situation. However, his cousin Gator, beating back foes and opponents, encouraged his cousin to snap out of it and focus on the task at hand. So Prince Walker began to fight and was growing stronger. Taruko and Heather used their martial arts skills to beat back the forces. Sata pulled both of them back as Gator and Prince Walker went towards Mizani. Mizani and his powerful big spear was more than ready to beat down the prince and the Gator to submission and force Jedi to join their cause. Mizani exclaimed, but this was the only way. Their true path was with the Lagoon, he said. The prince was first stunned. The Lagoons were in this universe. It was impossible. Now he was more convinced now than ever why the Overthrow had begun the rebellion. He feared that there would be no turning back for the Overthrow now, and an all-out war within the universe was inevitable. Still, Prince Walker, determined to prevent further bloodshed, got within himself his true inner power and became a prime, and began to fight back against Mizani, who too had finally become a prime. The two prime warriors began to fight. It was a magnificent display of heart, guts, and pride. Hans and Gator were fighting, and Hans had convinced the Sudi forces that the Overthrow were fully on their side and were now fighting to overthrow the Billdaron Empire. However, before either Mizani or Prince Walker could lay the final blow at each other, suddenly Hans was stabbed in the back by Heather and was killed. The Sudi merchants were fully convinced that the Overthrow were now on their side. However, that could be further from the truth. Because you see, Fong had reached out to King Horatio, who was training in his old age to become a prime fighter. They primed themselves for a big fight. His cunning wife, Marshi, had advised her brother to go to Prince Walker and to fool them into thinking that the Oberon were indeed rebellion to fully fool the forces. Vaughn had made a choice. He could either join the rebellion and overthrow the Billdaron and let Oberon be under the control of the Lagoon Sudi once more, or he could destroy the Lagoon and Sudi forces, become a hero within the universe, and if something were to happen to the Billdaron Empire, be a true worthy successor of the Billdaron name. And so he chose the latter. The secret of communications that Vaughn made during the previous time was the King of Issue, and they formed the plan. Prince Walker was the only one out of the loop. He sensed that Mizani was holding back in their battle and was completely stunned. Now, the Oberon had full access to the Sudi temple, and now the Jedi was secretly going with them, thinking and fooling them to thinking that the Jedi had also joined them. The combined forces of the Jedi and the Oberon raced towards the new Sudi temple, newly rebuilt Sudi temple, to wage war against the Lagoon Sudi forces. The final battle in the revamped Sudi temple was a complete shock to the Lagoon Sudi forces. Hans was dead, and Franz, technical guard dog, was stunned. Bruno and Paulina had their doubts about Mizani, but their doubts proved right. Now they must make their last stand with the people that they had opened their arms to. Alfred Cyber was very upset and pissed, but he should have just killed Helga and not invited the Oberon nor the Jedi in the first place. Fighting was fierce. The forces of King Rishu and Queen Marshi and Viceroy Marvin all fought again for the first time since the last wars of ANDROSICA. On this battlefield, Mizani Oberon, Prince Walker worked together this time instead of fighting each other. Taruko, Gator, Heather, and Sata all fought enemy troops. The fighting was fierce, phenomenal, and gigantic. Amongst the chaos, Sata, the veteran warrior, was shot, but he continued on fighting. He slayed many enemies and helped his allies when he can, and then he was shot again. And then couldn't survive. He fell and collapsed and succumbed to his many wounds. The veteran warrior of the Jedi had fallen. Elsewhere, the rebel forces of the Lagoon and Sudi were collapsing. The powerful might of the Jedi and the Oberon were too advanced and too strong than the Lagoon and Sudi, who still needed time to rest and recover. But this was their end. Bruno and Paulina had finally fallen. Alfred, Cyber, and his own forces were no more. Franz, guard dog, tried to guard, but he was put down. The enemy troops were being slowly but surely withered out. Mizani then told Horatio that they are the representation of their forces, and they should go up to the top and end their wannabe leader and king, Renard Lagoon. And so the two of them raced up on top of the stairs to meet Renard Lagoon. Renard was furious of this betrayal, and he worked so hard for many years to get where he was at. And now Oberon had dare raised their blades against the Lagoon Empire. Mizani then said there is no more Lagoon Empire, and the Lagoon and Sudi had their chance but failed. The Oberon has survived and outlived both of them, and it would be foolish for Oberon to go back to the past after they come such a long way. King Risho announced that he will destroy the Lagoon and Sudi because he did not want chaos and fighting to continue. If they were to join them, the fighting and chaos would get worse. But if they stay the course and stay with the Billdaron, then surely but surely the chaos would end. Reynard had heard enough of their foolishness and took his big double chakrams and attacked. The prime Rishu dodged and moved fast and quickly against Reynard. Mizani had done the same. Although he was fighting from a long time, Mizani still had fighting power left in him. He was basically a berserker at this point. And so the two leaders of the respective governments worked together to destroy the last of the rebel leaders of the Billdaron. And so Rishu with his sword, Mizani with his spear, both landed at critical blows on Reynard at the same time. Reynard dropped his chakrams and was thrown into the air and hit the ceiling and hit hard back on the ground. The Lagoon Sudi rebellion was apparently over. However, suddenly a portal had opened. Then Reynard laughed and said, "You stupid fools. You honestly think I alone was responsible for all this? If you were to join me, you would have been spared. But now, Lord Luthor, that's Lothar, will destroy you." Rishu then exclaimed, "Luthor? Who the hell is that?" And then Mizani also asked and wondered the same, because they were not with the Lagoon Sudi long to know this information. Reynard then suddenly got back up and sacrificed himself to Luthor, who was, in fact, the tree of forbidden knowledge made flesh, a giant fleshly structure of that of a godlike being. Is in another dimension within the Sudi temple. They were both stunned. They thought the forbidden knowledge was destroyed during the Great War, and they wondered and questioned how many forces did really survive from that war. Reynard, in his last words, said that Luthor had absorbed all those that had survived that were unknown, and he chose me to be his vessel and his disciple to bring in and usher a new age of knowledge. But your treachery has destroyed his plans. There's only one thing to do but to destroy the entire universe itself and start from scratch. Then Reynard disappeared and his essence went on to Luthor. Then Prince Walker had joined Mizani and King Rishu up towards the top of the tower, and he saw the portal. Prince Walker was very confused, but his father told him to become a prime and power up. But the three of them were going towards the portal. Now, through the portal, they face mystical beings and monsters, likes of which they have never seen before. There, they continued on their journey to find Luthor. It was a big, beautiful, mountainous garden full of floating islands and mountains. They raced across this landscape, losing their might and powers to even fly to get by much quicker. After much journeying and toiling, the three men had arrived to face Luthor. Luthor was a gigantic monster, and power oozed out of it. Mizani said he's going to use his spear to cut it down. Prince Walker was very determined to use his fighting skills to end this beast of evil for the sake of righteousness. And King Rishu vowed to revenge Satan and all those that died needlessly in this conflict. And so the three men faced Luthor. Luthor was strong and had powerful force shields. and their prime powers were being drained. However, the three men powered up as they were the strongest in the universe left standing to defend it. And so they continued their march and began to dodge Luthor's attacks. Luthor then used powerful energy beams and tried to warp time and space to reverse time before the enemies that faced it could attack him and counteract it. The three were in trouble. They had to work together and blank their minds and not think of their next moves, because Luthor was reading their minds as well. Instead, they had to let their movements and their bodies move freely in order for them to have some sort of advantage and just think random, wild, and crazy thoughts. Zani thought about slaughtering random people. Risho thought of his olden days when he was with the former Jedi Empire, and Prince Walker thought about happier times in the future. Luthor could not read their minds because their minds were wandering, but yet their bodies and the weapons moved in sync and harmony with each other, and the three men were able to overwhelm Luthor, despite him being much powerful. Still, the forces continued their attack until the very end. After such time, they managed to get a breakthrough. They finally broke through Luthor's force shield, and together the three men struck the heart of forbidden knowledge. And thus, Luthor, the forbidden knowledge was finally gone from all existence. Seeing the death of Luthor, the dimension that they was in was collapsing all around them. The three men quickly escaped out of the dimension and back to the temple, where awaited their forces. Everyone cheered as they were able to finally save the universe from a pending doom. A small ceremony was held in remembrance of Saturn, and all their troops had fallen on this day. However, with the universe now fully secured, Zani and their forces were readying themselves to return to the dimensions to start the war and finish it. Elsewhere, Fong, in his castle at his desk, adjusted his glasses, and the light shone on his face. Only his glasses was seen shining as his mind raced towards the future, towards bigger and better, towards more power. Fong was not finished calculating his ambitions, but this was only a small step towards what he truly wanted. The end.